Professor Devinney, the topic of your panel session was new forms of governance. Do we need a stakeholder approach of governance? Can you sum up the key questions you discussed in the session?
Well, there are probably two big issues, one of which was how do you know which stakeholders are really the stakeholders that matter, and who do you partner with? And the second question was, is there sort of an evolving or change in the nature of the definition of what a stakeholder is that goes beyond the obvious, you know, consumers, workers, NGOs, and is much more expansive in thinking about the notion of who a stakeholder is.
And can you sum up the central results of the discussion?
I would guess that there are probably, again, 2 points which were particularly relevant, and one of which was a discussion on what was the meaning of space and place. We tend to think about societies within national geographic boundaries, and we tend to think about cultures in somewhat compartmentalized ways. And a lot of the discussion was talking about the notion that place may go far beyond that in the future individuals will define themselves as being parts of societies which have no relationship to their existing place. They won't be Germans, they'll be issue driven. They won't be Americans, they will simply be different in that regard. So there was kind of that aspect of it. And the second aspect was the evolution of the governance structures, and that is currently the governance structures in corporations in particular know how to do things that corporations know how to do, but they don't necessarily know how to do things that go beyond what corporations do. So when they interact with NGOs, when they partner with NGOs, when they try to do social responsibility initiatives, they do them the same way they market products and run their systems and run their programs. And the question is, in 10, 15 years' time, will this kind of be like the internet? You know, 20 years ago, people didn't really know what the internet was, and companies just used the internet the way they did their normal business, whereas now they use the internet in a very different way than they would have even guessed they would have used it 20 years ago.
The conference of the topic of the fourth CSR conference here in Berlin is called CSR Challenges Around the Globe. So how important, in your opinion, are collaborations between economy, governance, and the civil society to handle the global challenges of our time?
In my opinion, probably very poor. Simply because the system that we have is essentially kind of post-Westphalian system. It is still state-based. So we have the systems in place which are represented by this building. They're governmental systems. We have NGOs which essentially are like corporations, and we have corporations which are obviously corporations. But the real issues are arising, I think, at the margins of that. They're arising where the state can't impose authority. They're arising in situations in which the value systems themselves are in conflict. They're arising in situations where the players in the global socioeconomic game are not necessarily represented by any of these established groups, which is why you have, for example, anti-globalization protesters, groups like ATTACK and others, who kind of mobilize these kind of fringe interests. And I think we lose sight of what those could do in the future.